Tonight's program is eBird, and a little bit of Discord on the end of it. So online, we've got Robert Perez has joined us. He's going to cover the back half, so he's going to cover the website. I'm going to cover the app, and we're going to do a live demo on this. So the fun and joy of live demo is it means it's interactive, and we'll try not to slow down too much. But if there are questions, I can try to take a few as we're going along. However, one of the things I want to say, partly for the online folks, because you can't see anything in the room if something happens, the software used to get this demo to work live on the screens in here is a little unstable at times. So we may have some technical difficulties if, I didn't feel like I bit off enough from the last month's technical difficulties. I just decided button for punishment, we're going to do it again. But anyway, there is a small chance that we'll have some technical difficulties in the middle. If the presentation disappears, give us a sec to get back online. We'll try to get that fixed as quickly as possible. It just, running an Android phone on your computer, well, one, takes a much bigger computer than normal, and two, doesn't always work correctly. So yeah, we'll launch right into it. So what I've got here, we're actually going to go back, as I said, is we're going to hide that. Okay, so how many people recognize this screen on the thing? So you used eBird before. Yep, good. So we have a few experienced users. If you're just encountering this for the first time, this is what happens. This is the first screen you'll encounter when you open your eBird app. So we're going to run through things here. Just some background. eBird is sort of the go-to at this point, as far as I know, for submitting and keeping track of your bird checklist data. So back before my time, maybe you'd write it on pen and paper, keep lists somewhere. But modern digital era, 21st century, we keep everything on the web. So this is sort of your way to do this. The cool thing about it is not only does it help you keep track of your lists, but it helps science, because the lists you submit go into a database, and Cornell feeds, a lot of researchers use Cornell's database to drive research and conservation, other studies about how, where birds are, how they're doing, and all that sort of stuff. So we're going to go in. So the primary purpose of eBird, really what 90% of people are going to use it for, 99% of people are going to use it for, is submitting checklists. So you're out in the field, you go to a birding hotspot, your favorite forest preserve, wherever you're going. And basically, you walk in the parking lot, you get out of the parking lot, you get your binoculars on, and the next thing you do is you're going to start a checklist. So we're going to start a checklist. We may need to. Do you want to do website stuff temporarily while I try to debug this?
Sure. Yeah. Let me go ahead and share my screen here.
Apologies, everybody. Yeah. Yeah. Not on how to do this.
Okay. All right, folks, can you see my screen here? Okay. All right. So while Matt deals with the app, I'm going to run through and look at the website here. So I can't really see anybody since I am coming to you guys through downstate Illinois today. So we're just going to go through the website here. I don't know if anybody, how many people have gone on the eBird website. It's a really useful website and pretty easy to use. So we're just going to minimize that for right now. All right. So when you first get into the eBird website here, you'll see the home screen. All right. There's a couple of tabs up here on the upper right-hand side. We're going to go through some of these tabs. We're going to skip the submit tab for right now. Hopefully Matt can show us how to use the app, but basically the submit tab is the same exact thing as the app. You can submit eBird lists. And you can do it on this website versus doing it on the phone. So we're going to skip that for right now. And instead, we're going to look at the Explore tab. This is the one that I use the most. So when I am going on vacation or anything like that, this is what I use. So you can explore different species. So for example, let's say I want to look up tufted titmouse. I type it in here and it pulls up all the information here on tufted titmouse. It has a little description. It has different photos of adults and juveniles and all that kind of stuff. It lists some statistics. So I have seen a tufted titmouse 243 times. I've taken 7 photos and I have 1 audio recording. It can also show me a range map. And the cool thing about eBird, the website here, is you can click on, apologies, like I said, I'm in the middle of nowhere down here. Okay. You can click on the map and zoom in real close and see exactly where recent sightings of this bird has been. So these orange markers here tell you where this bird has been seen. So it was seen by Vicky at Waterfall Glen on August 27th. Or Redgate Woods, wherever that is. It was seen on the 24th. So you can go around and explore different species using this Explore Species area here under that Explore tab. Another useful area is Explore Regions. Like I said, when I go on vacation, I look up what species I'm gonna possibly see via eBird. So right now I am in Williamson County, Illinois. So I'm gonna type in Williamson County, Illinois. So we're gonna click on this. It's going to show me all the recent species that have been seen either this month, this year, or total all records, right? For the most part, unless it's some random home address, like this nighthawk was seen, it will link you over to the specific eBird hotspot. So coincidentally, I'll be going to Crab Orchard National Wildlife Refuge in a couple days, but hopefully I can see these 3 great egrets that were seen a couple days ago. So that's kind of where you can go for that. Okay. Additionally, so if we scroll a little further down on the Explore tab, you'll get a bunch of other options here. So that species map, it's the same kind of thing that we looked at on that tufted titmouse. When we looked the tufted titmouse up, you can look at some of the maps where species are located, and zooming in, you can see some specific hotspots. Explore hotspots is exactly what it is. So if we click on the Explore Hotspots tab and we zoom in, let's kind of zoom into where I'm at here. Can I even find where I am? All right, so I'm around this area here. So you'll see different hotspots, these little tick marks. So there's Crab Orchard. There's another section of Crab Orchard. This is probably all Crab Orchard, right? Yeah. I will be tomorrow. Let's see if I can find it. Nope. I'll be hiking over in Garden of the Gods. So wherever that is, somewhere in this area. But you can click on these different hotspots. You can click on the hotspots themselves. And again, just like we looked at with that other hotspot, it'll tell you all the species that have been seen. So I guess one other note with these hotspot ticks, as you can see, some of them are in different colors. So the darker the color, so this really dark orange one, there's been 278 species seen versus like this gray one over here, 14 species. So if you are going on vacation somewhere and you really want to, find a place that might be really good for birds, sticking to some of these hot spots with really dark colors might be useful. All right.
Can I chime in one thing, Rob?
Yes.
On that page, if you go back real quick, the other thing, if you're on vacation, because sometimes hotspots, like if you think about Montrose, it's really, really good in 2 months of the year. And it's not bad other times of year, but it's like best, it's peak, it's renowned for a couple months of the year. There's this date picker in the toolbar at the top where it's the default map is year round all years. So it's going to show you there are 300 species seen here all year. You can put it in a specific month, like you say, you're going to be over there in September, and say all years, because that'll give you all historical sightings for September. And now this map looks a little different. So a hotspot that is a migrant, like a wintertime migrant trap or something like that, may not have the same species in the summer. You may look at the list. So if you switch the date range in the toolbar on the page, that'll tell you what people are actually seeing in the month you're there, which can sometimes make a big difference in what you're going to see or what you can expect out of a hotspot.
Absolutely, yeah. So, like Matt
Yeah.
was saying, I mean, September with Montrose, you're always going to get a ton of species. Let's see if we change it over to, I don't know, it's a bad month. Let's do February
January, February.
for Montrose here.
Yeah.
All right, you're still at 111 species for Montrose, but yeah, like Matt said, we get a lot of gray. We got a lot of gray and a lot of blue here. Arb is still pretty good. And then let's just put in May. All right, we're a little better here. So we're getting the 236 at Fermilab, 201 for Arb. So nice comment.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back. Okay, so bar charts. This is another tool that I'll use when I go on vacation. So I am looking to possibly go to Maine next year. So I'm gonna just generally see what possible species I could see in Maine. So I'm gonna do Maine for the entire region because I'm not quite sure what county I'm gonna go to, but if I do know exactly what county, I can kind of nail it down here. And then we're going to go continue. Okay. Now it's giving me data from 1900 to 2025. Typically what I'll do is I'll change the month. So I'll probably be there in September. So we're only going to do September, and then data from 1900 is probably not going to be very helpful for me. So I'll do the last 5 years, 2020 to 2025. And here are the bar charts. So if you guys aren't familiar with bar charts, basically it will tell me the likelihood of different species in different months. So just looking at September here, the thicker these little lines are, the more likely I am to see a species. So Canada goose, September in Maine, I have a high likelihood of seeing it. Same thing with wood duck and some blue-winged teal. Mallards, black ducks, that typical stuff. These really skinny kind of lines right here, there may only be a couple sightings. So redhead, it's very unlikely that I'll see it, but it's not impossible. Let's see. Is there anything? I think I chose September, so it's just going to give me the species that have been seen in September. But long-tailed Jaegers I probably won't see. But what I'll do then is I'll make a list of possible birds that I may see. If that's a little too complicated for you, there's an easier section here under target species. So again, let's look up Maine in the United States. We're going to look at just September. Now, with this for your, if I click, if I leave this, it's going to show me, I'll just show you guys. It's going to show me every single bird I have never seen in Maine. I've never been to Maine. So it's going to list every single bird, right? If I narrow it down and say, let's say my world list. So any species that I've already seen, it's going to knock this out. So we're now down to 49. So if I go to Maine in September, I have an 8.4% chance to see this black guillemot. And now it will give me all the data that has ever been in here. So there's probably a historic record for a Swainson's warbler 60 years ago. That's why this is on the list, but it hasn't been seen in 80 years. So there's a 0% chance I see it, right? But what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll make a list of things I want to see. So let's say I really want to see this black guillemot here. I'll click on this. And then as you can see here, it's kind of zoomed in on Maine. I can click on the large map and zoom in. And remember, all these orange pins show me where this particular bird has been seen. So, okay, it's been seen at this Pemaquade Point Lighthouse Park. Great. That might be a place I add to my trip itinerary if I go to Maine. All right. Any questions so far? And I can't see anybody, but I'm not seeing any questions on the chat.
We do have a couple questions in the room proper. Before we take questions real quick, one other thing is that, sorry to just keep chipping in, but
yeah.
One other thing is this target species thing, you can run all the way down to the hotspot level. So you can actually run this like the same query of show me probabilities to see a given bird in a given month. You can run all the way down to hotspot because obviously Maine, you saw the region map for that particular bird is only on the coast. So the entirety of Maine, only 8.4% of checklists in September have it, but you may have a 90% chance to see it at a hotspot that actually is a good spot for it, right? So you can run that all the way down to the thing, but I will also say from personal experience, probabilities are probabilities. I think North Carolina wide, you're 99 or 90 something +% chance of seeing a brown-headed nuthatch, and it took me 2 years to find that darn bird.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So anyway, we had 2 questions. Do you have to know the name of the hotspot?
No, you don't. And in fact, I don't know any hotspots. So, let's see again. So if I go, and again, this is just me, right? So I'm going to Maine, and if I'm putting an itinerary together, let's see, here's Portland. Okay, let's say I land in Portland. I'm going to spend a couple days. I see this orangey hotspot. Gilsland Farm okay, an Audubon Center. All right. I'm probably going to add this to my itinerary. So you don't necessarily need to know the hotspots, but if you do, you can search for one. So the easy one, let's just say Montrose.
Yeah. But yeah, you can
Beach. If you do know hotspots, you can look them up. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah. So there's that other location bar. The other location field in the upper right will allow you to search by a specific like city and just center the map on it. So, but yeah, I do a lot of the same thing Robert's just showing, where you just go to it. I just open a map around the area I am, and it's like, okay, where's the dots?
Yeah,
Where's the closest thing?
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But no, that's a good point. Yes, you can search any time you can open a hotspot map, and even if you have a hotspot, you can open up a map view of it and see other hotspots in the area too. So that feature is sort of consistent through the entire website. If you can find a map, you can always zoom in, zoom out to see hotspots, all that jazz. But it's a really great way, as Robert's saying, vacation planning, or in my case, I travel a lot for work. So it's like, okay, I'm getting sent here. Where's the nearest place I can walk to? Because I don't have a car, but I'm bored. So yes, and second question, sorry. So I believe red dots are recent sightings. Blue dots are it has been cited.
Yeah, correct.
It
Let's go.
You'll actually we'll see the same red blue coloration come back on the app because they use the same symbology across the board, but the date range is not always consistent. I think in the app it's 7 days. It turns it red, like a visit in the last 7 days turns it red. Yeah. Okay, it is modifiable. But yeah, they tend to use the same coloration. Basically, red dots are recent visits, blue dots are has been visited at some point in all of history.
Correct. Yeah. So these blue dots, the last time this tufted titmouse was seen at this particular location was in July. I think it says it over here. Yeah. So it looks like on the website it's 30 days. So once 30 days have passed and a species has not been seen, this hotspot will turn blue.
Yeah.
9-3. Yeah.
Robert, I have a question. This is John Thompson.
Yeah.
So my wife, Marianne, and I have not used the software. We go down to Kiowa Island, for example, every year. We're getting ready to leave in a couple of weeks. We do bird quite a bit down there. So for us, if this year, if we want to use the software, we've seen a lot of birds. There's some, though, that we haven't seen for a while, or other ones where you got to go to a specific place on the island. Is the best way to do it just to sort of do a broad brush and sort of scan the birds, see how many there are, and then just try to find a specific place on the island where you can locate those?
Yeah. Do you guys use when you are birding, do you use eBird?
We really haven't.
No? Okay. So
Yeah.
what I
We
would
can,
do,
but we haven't. We will
yeah,
now, probably.
yeah. So what I would do if I were you guys, go into target species, type in what do you know the county that's in?
Let's see, is that Charleston County? It's south of John's Island. It's the furthest barrier island south of Charleston.
Is that South Carolina?
Yeah, like 40 minutes south of Charleston, South Carolina. Yeah.
So yeah, so I would just
That's Baldwin.
I think
yeah,
it's Charleston.
and then you'll know what species you've seen and what species you haven't. So I would just this map will show you, or this list will show you all the species that you have not seen. And what I would do if I were you, and you're probably going to look at it like I am here if you've never used eBird, so it's going to list 411 species. Well, I assume you've seen a cardinal and a Carolina.
Like we haven't seen a pileated for a long time, but we've seen them on the island. But it's been years because we've been down there a lot of times.
Let's just see. Okay, so we'll click on pileated. And for you guys, I would just, like I'm doing here, mapping it out. So again, orange hotspots are places it's been seen recently. There's two next to each other here. So Fort Johnson,
Yeah, you
and
go
May
south a little bit.
Forest.
Yeah, for example, Keel is like south and it's just to the,
There it is.
right there. There you
Yeah.
go.
So
Yes, and there's.
Night Heron Park, there's one that was seen on the 4th.
Okay. Nice.
Marsh Hawk Tower, another one seen on the
Yeah.
4th. So, and then I guess I should note these are this symbol here means a hotspot.
Yeah.
These kind of nondescript little ticks are some random person's yard. So,
Okay.
Or perhaps somebody's personal. If you've ever submitted a checklist, you can make your own personal locations. So they're not official published hotspots, but like, yeah, it could be someone's house. It could just be a random intersection because there wasn't a hotspot nearby. It's really just a random geopoint that isn't necessarily routinely visited by more than one person.
yeah.
Yeah, I wonder too, that they have a really good rookery down there for the great whites or but there's tons of them. So I just wonder, do people put in there like we saw 100 of them or something like that?
Yeah.
Can you in this software, I didn't notice when you were going through it earlier, can you put notes, like make comments in it if just for additional information?
Yeah, you could. So, let's real quick. And this is, I assume, Matt, this is something you were
Yep.
going to go over here. You know what? I'll get to that when I touch on my eBird, because
Okay.
we'll look at some of my checklists. But yes, you can make notes on checklists that you put in there.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very helpful.
No problem. All right, I'm gonna get through. I have 2 more things to go over with this Explore tab here, and then I'll get through my eBird, and then my portion of the website will be over. Two other just things to note on this Explore tab down here. Alerts, again, if I'm going on vacation, I can choose to subscribe to get daily rare bird alert emails for a certain location. So right now I get the ABA, which is American Birding Association, rarity. So any rarity to the American Birding Association area, and listen, I studied history, so I'm explaining this incorrectly, but you get the point. Any rare species that is not expected, let's say in North America, let's make it easy, I'm going to get emailed for. Any rare bird alerts that show up in Illinois, I'm going to get an email, and then I'm close to Indiana, so I signed up for that as well. Let's say, again, I'm going to go to Maine. I'll be there for a while. I can sign up for to receive daily emails for any rare bird alerts in Maine.
Yeah.
I can also unsubscribe to any list from this website as well. So don't think that if I sign up for a bunch of different states, those are going to keep coming in daily. You can unsubscribe whenever you want.
Yeah. You can also, without subscribing, there's a view button on that page next to the yeah. So if you punch in Maine again, it'll let you view.
There we go. Yeah.
And that way you don't, that's great for, again, if you're on the road and you're in some special area. Apparently a bufflehead is an interesting thing this time of year for them. So if you want to see a bufflehead, there's one around, everybody's looking at it. So, and a lot of times, again, to somebody's question about comments, I think that was from online. When there's rare birds going on, the app actually forces you to record a comment. And so if you're going to go chase, like I actually got to do this last week when I was in North Carolina. They had a glossy ibis in town that is not a normal bird for them. I had no idea where to find it. There was just a generic point at an intersection, but one of the records had a detailed explanation of where to go to find it. So checking the comments that Robert's showing here of basically, you know, in a cornfield near Greytown line. There you go. Now you've got some directions. You got a little bit more than just a you know, question mark of where this is.
Yeah.
That's in the area.
And these comments for rare birds are really useful. You know, I could go to this National Wildlife Refuge tomorrow and oh, I want to be popular. I'm going to say I saw a flamingo, right? that sighting is going to be flagged in eBird, and it's going to want some proof that I saw a flamingo in the middle of, you know, Southern Illinois. So it's going to want either a detailed description, which, you know, none of these are. Here we go. Continuing bird, immature with yellow bill, dark overall with white line on upper flanks, greenish, yellow legs, brown back, gray front, black head, blah, 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 right? Or it's going to want pictures. And for those of you who have used eBird, and you're unsure about something, there are regional reviewers who look through lists. So I submit a list that has a flamingo in it. Whoever is in charge of reviewing those lists for this area is going to look over that list. And if they're not satisfied, they're going to email me and tell me, you got to edit this list. So that way, eBird's pretty, I like to think that it's pretty accurate with that kind of stuff. The last thing I'm going to show you guys on this, it's just kind of fun here. If you're competitive, you can compare yourself with the top 100. So in my grandma's particular county, I am happy to report I'm the 18th best eBirder in her tiny little county. So you can kind of chase down these people if you are, you know, overly competitive when it comes to eBird or birding in general. So, you know, DuPage County, 65, right? Or let's say Cook County. This is going to be bad. I'm the 396th best birder here, and it's not best. It's people who've seen the most species, right? So I've seen the 396th most species in Cook County. So that's pretty much it with Explore. Again, there's a couple other things. You know, way down here, there's yard totals and patch totals and all that kind of stuff that you can explore on your own. But the next thing and really the last thing that I'm going to focus on here is my eBird. So this is where all of the data that you've compiled in eBird is stored. So I have seen for the world 618 species. I have submitted 1,270 checklists. I have 565, I've photographed 565 species, and I have submitted 43 recordings. I've been to 11 countries, territories, and dependencies, 756 regions, right? So states, shires, provinces, whatever it is, all right? In this, under my eBird, you can manage your checklists, right? So you can get a list of all the checklists that you've ever submitted, going as far back as you possibly want. I can show all here, and I can click into some of these checklists here. Let's look at, that's a bad one, because that was just incidental. Let's look at my Montrose one. I was there on the 7th. So I can go in, I can manage media. So I can add in photos, I can delete photos, I can edit species, I can take species away, add species in. I can, you know, okay, I was there for 2 hours, 18 minutes. I walked a mile. Boy, I went slow. Right. So you can start reviewing your own checklist that way. Let's see here. I don't really use location. These are just, personal, or these are locations that you have been recently. You can look at the number of checklists. So I have 209 submitted checklists at my grandma's house, right? And I can click on that, and I can, it's a personal location. So it's not an actual hotspot. So I can rename it. I can move it. I can, merge it, that kind of stuff, right? Again, if you guys are casual eBird users, you're not going to use this feature, but this is what's there. So going further down here, if I want to explore my profile, right? This is the eBird profile, right? So I have my little photo here. My oldest checklist was June 23rd, 2015. I created my eBird account though on February 26, 2017. So this 2015 list, I went back and I added some old data that I had. You can put a little bio in for yourself as well. This map here gives you a good illustration of all the places you've ever gone, right? So in the United States, I have seen, we hover over it, I've seen 505 species. If I click on that, I've seen 289 species in Illinois. We can click on this, and here's a list of all the counties that I've been to, right? That's about as far as you can click in. You can, click into DuPage. I've seen 219 species in DuPage, right? Let's see. I've been to the UK. This gives a list of the places in the UK that I've been, that I have eBird lists for, right? Same with Greece, right? You can zoom in and you can look at the different places you've been to in Greece. I don't know. I like maps, so this feature I particularly enjoy looking at. You can also view all your photos here. The latest photos I took from my trip to Montrose, some cardinals, some warblers, and again, I encourage all of you guys to play around with some of this more. You can filter your searches through the best quality. So these are the highest ranked photos, right? People can rank. See, I ranked this photo a 5-star, but other people thought it was a 4-star. So I'm not very happy about that one, right? You can rate, or you can, let's see, newest first. You can do the taxonomic order here, right? So the whistling ducks are first, and then you can go further and further down. Going back, so you can look at all your photos on my eBird as well as checklists. So you can view all your checklists here. So that's just a broad overview of my eBird here. Again, it'll give you some statistics on, my species per year. So this year, I've seen 269 species. By September 11th in 2024, I was actually at 282, so I was a little higher, right? I've been slacking this year. 2023, I was at 277, so I've really been slacking. And then it gives you the total number of species you saw at year end. And then again, more statistics. Not all of us are numbers people, or but for those of us who are, again, useful information instead of keeping paper lists. this will track it all electronically, right? The science tab has some interesting articles on, recent bird studies, trends, all that kind of stuff. It is interesting. I've read through some of this stuff. Obviously, the About tab is the About tab. If you want to learn more about eBird, it looks like they have a nice video here. And then again, news has some interesting news stories on the page. So that is pretty much all I have here.
We do have a question in the room, Robert. If
Yes.
Dan, go ahead, Dennis. Yes. So the question was, yeah, so the question is about basically, is there a way to look up other people's profiles? I can partially answer that. It still does display checklist history. However, I don't know if it's been since it's certainly been as long as I've been a member of eBird, but there is an option to set your profile to public or not public. If your profile is set to not public, nobody else can click on it and view any of that information that Robert just showed you about your profile. However, if your profile is set to public, it will display as a link on the checklist page. So like if you go to DuPage, so like in the top 100 eBirders, there's a whole bunch of people in this room, strangely enough. But the ones that are blue, those people have set their profiles to public, so you can actually click on them and open them up. I'm in here somewhere, further down. Well, you can still see the checklist list for individual hotspots.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we'll pick on Steve. So Steve, I can click on his account again. It's blue, so his account is public. So I can click on his account, and you can kind of see where Steve's been, and look at his account that way. Again, you can set your account to not public. You can set your account to private. I'm actually not sure. I'm assuming it's.
Yeah, it's under it's profile and then edit profile.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, edit
Yeah.
profile, and I can make mine private, but I don't know. Maybe it's my narcissism, but I'm going to keep it public. Public.
So if you cannot click on somebody's profile, it's because I do not remember if eBird sets you to private by default or it sets you to public by default when you create account. But if you cannot click on someone's account, it is because they've set their profile to private.
Yeah. So Vicky, I cannot click on Vicky here. Her account is private.
Yeah. So
there's a couple questions here on the chat here. Is my alerts in both web and app versions? I can't find it in the app, so I think it's only something you can add on the website. But I could be wrong, but I just don't see it in the app. What you're explaining seems to be on a laptop. Is this equally available on an iPhone? Yes. I can get all of this on my iPhone. Yeah, then this person said, "Oh, yeah, this is
you can do this all on a mobile browser. It's just not it's not super nice."
Yeah, correct. So you can't see all of this on the actual app. The app is more for counting the species and doing the checklist. But yeah, like Matt said, if you open up a browser on your phone, you can look up eBird, and I actually have eBird favorite it on my internet browser, so I can click in there quickly and show the high school kids at work how, many birds I've seen. So,
All right, cool. Thank you. Well, first off, halfway point of the presentation. Thank you, Robert,
yes.
for tuning in from vacation. Help us out with this.
Yeah, Matt, do you want me just do you have the app up and running? Do you want me to just go through Discord real quick?
The app is up and running.
Okay, I'll turn it over to you then, since we're on eBird right now.
Yeah. Let me just get this thing working again. And display settings, swap. Where's the Zoom meeting? There's the Zoom meeting. All right, we're gonna share screen 2. All right, can everybody see the slide deck again? I hope so. Okay. So take 2. Now with, the cursor is actually in the right place. Okay, so we're going to start off with submitting a checklist. So again, on the submit page, I've got a checklist running at the moment, but you'd have a submit button. It's the big green button. You can't miss it. So we're going to click this off and it'll get your GPS location, start a checklist. So I've been running this checklist since we started the meeting. So it's been going on for a while. But as far as the checklist interface goes, you got your time up here, how far it thinks you've traveled. They recently did an update to how it calculates how you traveled. It no longer counts double backs or anything like that. Wherever the app thinks you've covered the same territory, it does not double count that anymore. So that's a big change. So like if you walk a trail a mile out and a mile back, it'll only give you 1 mile for that now. It used to give you 2. So that's just a minor thing. So it's not a great thing if you're also trying to use this to calculate your exercise regimen. That is not what eBird is for. So it's how much territory did you cover. The other part on here is this location up here. It's auto-selected. We'll come back to that later. I find it usually just easier to do the location at the end of the checklist than at the front end. But we're going to hop right into recording species. So as I said, we got our checklist interface up. Here's our list. Basically, by default, there's a couple different views in here. And we've got sort of, by default, it gives you this list of all the birds that it thinks are fairly likely here. So we got a Canada goose, wood duck, mallard, domestic mallard, mourning dove, etc. We can add and subtract species. So basically the basic interface in here is if you see a species that you want to record, you're going to basically click the plus button. And if you tap the plus button, that gives you 1 species, or that gives you 1 count. If you tap it multiple times, it counts 1 for every time you tap it. So easy enough for basic recording. You find a bird, you add a couple of them. So we saw 2 more mallards. Go from there. You just keep adding them in. Now, obviously, there's a lot more than 1 screen's worth of birds out here. And while I can go scrolling around searching for a bird, that doesn't give you very much time to actually look for birds. You're going to spend a lot of time looking for birds in the app rather than looking for birds online, or rather than for looking for real birds. So the big thing I wanted to cover, because this is probably at least for me, one of the biggest things that makes it viable to do this while I'm in the field. Like if you've ever been on a field trip with me, I'll be running eBird while we're doing field trips and everything. There's a shorthand system based on bird banding codes for bird names out there in the world. And we'll hit this real quick. We're going to run through it quickly because we don't need to memorize it. We just kind of need to know how it works. So it's based on Bird Banding Laboratory / Institute for Bird Populations. That's the underlying system. If you're actually doing bird banding, you need to know this a lot more detailed than we need to know for eBird. But the idea is every single bird name can be condensed down to a 4-letter code. There's some rules depending on exactly how what the bird's name is, but we'll kind of go over some basics here. So 1-word names. If the bird's name is 1 word, like let's say an osprey, The 4-letter abbreviation is just going to be the first 4 letters of the name, so OSPR. So I'll pull up the app real quick. So again, we've got this giant list. If I start typing OSP, and again, you don't need to know the whole thing. You can just sort of start filling it in. By the time I get to OSP, there's only one option left. It's really easy to find. It's an osprey. Yes, you click in. Yes, yeah. So this add observation or find species up at the top. That's where we're gonna go. So we click in there. You'll get a keyboard if you're on a real phone. Cut it down, and this is an osprey. So we just saw one osprey in this wonderful internal room. So we're gonna count that. So close this. It'll go back to the list. Now, one other thing before we continue on with the list here. If you get out of editing mode, you may have to hit back. There's this checklist. There's this check option that displays the number of species you've seen so far. You can toggle between the 2 modes. One of the modes is show all species. The other mode is show only species you've seen. I prefer this mode personally because then if I'm adding things, it's a lot. I don't have to look at that giant list to find them. If I want to add another mallard, I just click on the next mallard, add another mallard. Make sense? Okay, so back to bird searches. So one word names are easy. You just first 4 letters and you just start typing. 2-word names, fairly straightforward. It's basically just going to be the first 2 letters of the first part of the bird's name, or the first word in the bird's name, the first 2 letters of the second part of the bird's name. So American redstart would be AMRE. Canada goose, CAGO. So again, just to demonstrate the point, we're going to see some Canadian geese or Canada geese. So CA, again, you go up to the search bar, CAGO, and we're down to Canada goose. And we're going to add a couple of these guys. Now, one thing to demonstrate, because Canada geese is a great species to demonstrate that on. You don't generally see 1 or 2 Canada geese. You generally see a lot of them all at once. And sitting here, if you saw 50, who wants to sit there and hit 50, click, 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 keep ticking up until you get to 50. So there's a couple of really cool shortcuts where eBird will do math for you, especially if you have you need to add 7 and 8 and you can't figure out that on the fly because it's the end of the day and I'm tired. So we're going to type in, you can actually in the search bar, let's say I saw 50 geese. I can type 50 and click on the species account for Canada goose, and it'll add 50 to the count. So as long as the first letters the first things you enter are numbers, it'll automatically add it in for you. So I want to add another 125. And let's say I want to search because I've got a long list. You can actually start typing letters after this. And we're going to get in a lot of trouble for doing this. But we saw 125 cackling geese. So we're going to click that. And that brings us to another thing in here, which is this orange flag line. Because this is an objectionable for a couple of reasons. 1, we don't see cackling geese around here this time of year at all. And 2, we should not see 125 of them. So this orange flag, the R icon on the right side of the screen is basically that rare bird flag. So that means, Robert talked earlier about the rare bird report. That means you're going to end up on the rare bird report for this. So it's going to ask you to enter a comment. The other reason it may bring it up is it may be high species. You may have a high count. So in this case, even if it was a time of year where cackling goose was legal, you're probably not going to see 125 of them here. So what it's going to ask, at some point, you need to fill in details. So somebody asked about comments. This is going to be a test entry. Ignore me. Normally, you put a better comment, but you're going to just fill in your details field with the comment describing what you saw. Did you count them by 5s? Did you count them by 100s? Did you have photos? What you got? Just put in the best stuff you got because the reviewer wants to know any information you have. And then we're going to just hit done. So we're going to leave our. Yes. Yeah, if you get an orange highlighted line, well, the orange highlighted line means you need to enter additional commentary, but that R icon on the right side means you will get your commentary will go to a reviewer, and they. Yes. Yes, sometimes you will have things switch in and out of rare status as you go along. Exactly. Yeah. It sort of depends. It's just your own workflow for it. It's just convenient time in the presentation to do it since it popped up. Now, the other thing I'll highlight while we're in here and while we're going through 4-letter bird names and I'm jumping in and out and I'm jumping back and forth across topics, these icons next to the bird names, you've got osprey is marked with an orange half circle and the cackling goose is marked with a red dot. That's sort of a rough gauge of rarity for the area. If a bird has no icon, it's seen over 50% of checklists in the area, like a 20 to 25 kilometer grid or circle around you. Over 50% of checklists have this bird on it. If it's orange half circle, that means it's less than 50%. And if it's a red dot, it's less than 5% of checklists in the area have it. So it doesn't necessarily always mean, and I think that's a like year-round calculation, because sometimes you'll get like a bird with an orange circle that'll flag as rare and you have to enter comments because it's seasonally rare, not annually rare. So like you see a lot of people, if you subscribe to the rare bird alert, you see a lot of people saying like, you get a palm warbler this time of year, you'll get flagged for it, even though it's not that uncommon bird because it's a couple weeks early. So a lot of people will put in like just early or something like that. Comments are as good as you get. Okay, going on with short form entries, 3-word names. So there's 2 different variants on this depending on how the bird's name is set up. So sort of, I should have looked up the technical term for this, but we'll go with the family name being something like blackbird or goose or robin or warbler, things like that. So if there's no hyphen in the family name and it's a 3-word name, so the descriptor is what the 2 words are, you're basically going to use the 1 letter from each of the descriptor terms and then the 2 letters from the family name. So red-winged blackbird is RWBL. So red wing blackbird. Great blue heron, GBHE. And again, as far as the rules go, RW, we're just trying to shorten the list down. RW takes the only thing in this area that meets RW, matches RW, is red-winged blackbird. So you don't even need to know the whole thing. You just kind of start from there. Great blue heron. This is one of my great pet peeves about eBird that I don't know why it does it, but for some reason, even at 3 letters, green heron shows up. And if somebody can explain to me why that happens, I would be very interested. Because I don't think that's how that works. But anyway, yeah, but there's nowhere in the green heron scientific name that has GBH in it, as far as I know. So it's an oddity. But moving on. So if you have a hyphen in the family name, the coding system isn't super reliable on this, or at least the way eBird implements it, because there's 2 different answers to this. The good news is the descriptor terms, so like in this case, I've got Eastern wood pewee and Eastern screech owl. That's the first 2 letters. The first 2 letters of that is the first 2 letters of the code. However, past that point, like the wood pewee is EAWO, so it takes the first 2 letters from the hyphenated term, but the Eastern screech owl is EASO, which is kind of fights the other direction. But again, the good news is, if I do Eastern wood pewee, I'm already there for EAW. I don't have to figure out what that 4th letter is. And the same thing for Eastern screech owl. The list gets pretty short by the time I'm on EAS. So EASC doesn't hit, but EASO does. So you go through that. And then last but not least, 4-word names goes back to fairly easy territory. You take 1 letter from each name. So black-throated blue warbler is BTBW. We don't have to put the W in there because there's no other BTB bird, but that's how you work your way through that. Now, one last thing, if you think about this as you're going along or you're familiar with it, there are conflicts in this coding system. Canada cackling goose, we've already got that one today. Technically, the rules say they're both CAGO. What this leads to, if you're actually doing bird banding, is there's alternate codes, and I forget what cackling goose is, but Canada goose is CAGO, and cackling goose is, I think, like CAKO or something like that. It's custom. There are no rules to the conflict resolution codes. They're just basically made up to solve issues. The good news is in eBird, if you remember from earlier, CAGO, eBird's forgiving about this, it'll give you both. And that's really all we care about. The same thing goes for like black-throated green, black-throated gray warbler. Not something you're going to see in the same place here, but it's technically the same thing where they have the same code. Black-throated gray would get us in a lot of trouble for reporting because it's not supposed to be here. But if we do BTGW, even though technically only one of those, neither one of those birds is actually BTGW, it shows you both because that's the logical thing you could come up with in the field. So, as I said, in terms of finding a bird to enter really quick, this is at least the best way I've found is you just kind of get used to your bird codes. You know, just as a silly thing, because this is actually how I learned about this and ended up getting some practice at it. Somebody made a pandemic hobby. If you've ever played Wordle, somebody made a Birdle version of this, and it's Wordle but with 4-letter banding codes. So you can go on there and it changes every day. Website's on here, but it's a lot of fun, and it's just a good way to kind of get in the habit of thinking of bird codes. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. So there's a lot of ways to go through, and eBird will actually, another thing is eBird will recognize historical names in some cases. It won't highlight Gray Jay, but Gray Jay, my book has Gray Jay, and it got switched to Canada Jay straight right after my bird book published, and that confused me for a while. But if you're actually in the region where Gray Jay is supposed to be, it'll still show up Gray Jay if you search that. So eBird, it's all about search terms. It's very forgiving on it, but you know, if you can kind of get used to that 4-letter code, or at least thinking along those lines, you can do, it's basically 3 or 4 key presses to get any bird in the system up on your screen to pick. Yeah. Yes. So this button at the bottom here, to shorten up the list to only birds you've seen so far, there's this button at the bottom that's it's a check icon with a number on it. If you click this, it switches you to short mode, which is basically only birds you've seen so far. Oh. Yeah, we'll get to packs a little later on. Oh, and thank you for Dwayne online. Apparently, green heron was once called green-backed heron, so that might be why it's popping up for GBH, which is interesting. Good point of history I did not know. Okay, so continuing on, we've done math, we've done short codes, we've done how to add birds to the list, we've done rare birds. The other thing we'll do in here, just as a note, sometimes in some parts of the world, we don't have too many of these in Chicago, but in some parts of the world, you'll run into birds that are really hard to separate from each other. The example I'm used to is American and fish crow, where you cannot tell the difference unless they say something. So if you get a crow flying over in a territory where you have fish crow, you can't say whether it's American or fish if it's being silent. So eBird has something called slash codes, where if we're just going to search for fish crow in here, it'll show this. One option is fish crow, and if I know I saw a fish crow, I could record a fish crow. But if I don't know which crow it was, there's this American slash fish crow option, which is a good thing to put it under, because it still records that you've seen 20 crows. You just don't know whether they're American or fish. So it gives the scientists a lot of evidence about population density. It just doesn't narrow it down to whether it's American or fish, and that's fine. It's still useful information. So if you can jot that stuff in, slash codes are really useful. There's some other varieties you can do. The other one that's out there is species, or at least in my vernacular, SPs. So like sometimes you see a bird and it's like, I know that's a duck, but I don't know beyond duck. You know, I can't get it to anything tighter than duck. Or sometimes you want to mark it so you know to go back and look at it later, but you can't make the ID in the field. You want to get the cameras off your or the picture off your camera, take a look at it zoomed in and all that stuff. So a good placeholder is they have these species codes or SPAs on here, where it's like, for example, we got duck SPA. So it's duck species. That's a generic. It won't flag anything. You can just put one on here. You can tap on the name. It'll bring this up, and I can type in some notes that says generally brown duck, orange bill. I don't know what bird that is, but we're going to call it that. And that's some notes for later to myself, right? So that covers species. There's also, not that you're going to use this very often, but eBird does have hybrid codes. So if you've seen a confirmed hybrid, you can record these in here. But again, pretty much every single hybrid is rare because you probably shouldn't be recording them unless you're very, very confident it's a hybrid. Couple other things for recording, just going down my list here. You can switch a bird. So instead, if you aren't confident on a count, you can switch a bird to present, which will mark it as X on the thing, which says you saw some amount of them, but you're not going to declare how many. Cornell provides this option, but they don't really recommend you use it unless you absolutely have to, because they'd really rather have an estimate of the count. So one of the things they talk about is like 5, if you see a huge flock of sandhill cranes going over, you're not going to count every single one of them, but you can estimate it by, maybe 5s or 10s or 25s or hundreds in some cases. And, basically if you see a huge flock and you're going to count by 25s, let's say, that means if you see a huge flock over, you think there were 5 groups of 25, it's 125. You put 125 round to that 5 or 10 or whatever, because they've got some fancy stuff in their analytics that can kind of detect that you're rounding and that's not a precise number.
Species keep on seeing, and after a while it get tired of counting probably. Some part of
Yeah. So you can do present. The one thing I'd say about it is if you care about checklist completionism, it will take, if you have any X species, it doesn't count as a complete checklist. Doesn't really matter all that much. It does? No. Okay, it might be for the contests then. They have monthly contests where you're not allowed to put present. Yeah. Anyway, they try to incentivize you not to put present if you can, but it is an option if you want to use it. Okay. So if you click on a species, there's a option next to the count that says present. Yeah. So, yep. The other thing in here, as far as recording good scientific information, there's an option in here for breeding code. This is somewhat useful. It's sort of up to your comfort level as to exactly how tightly you want to define this, but there's some main ones in here and you can read through this. We're not going to go through every single one today, but basically from left to right is the least significant to most significant. So like NE is nest with eggs. So if you observed a nest with eggs, you've confirmed it, you can mark that in there and that just puts in interesting information. So again, it goes into their database and they can say that whatever species, I guess mallard, it'd be a little odd that they have a nest with eggs in September this year, but there'd be a record in there saying that somebody observed a nest with eggs in September. So it can help feed into that data about when things are breeding and what stage of the year they are when they're breeding, things like that. So, but that'll show up on the right side here as an extra icon. Yeah, so that at this point, we're kind of through all the data entry stuff that you're doing. And this is basically just as you're going along, however you want to do this in the field, you see a few birds, record them in. It depends what I'm doing as to whether I'm recording them as I'm seeing them or I'm trying to keep them all in my head and just put them down in between, gaps in activity. But at this point, we're going to say our checklist is complete. So we're going to stop our checklist down in the lower right. It'll ask you to confirm because once you stop tracking, it'll stop tracking your location, your time, and everything else. You can still edit things, it just stops tracking those things. So after you're done with your bird checklist, there's a few things to go through here. First off, location. As Urs mentioned earlier, sometimes things about probabilities can change once you specify your location because it's kind of assuming general and there may be a species that's just really common at one specific site. So we're going to choose our location. So we'll tap on that choose location option. my emulator thinks it's here at College of DuPage right now. So we're going to, the closest hotspot is College of DuPage, Russell Kirk Prairie. So that's over here. So we'll pick that. Now, sometimes there'll be, if I go back to click on the location, there'll be multiple things. So, if I, geez, forget I'm on not on mouse. So if I zoom out a little bit, you can see all these other blue icons. In this view, they're always blue. But these are other icons available. The ones with the little fires in them are official hotspots. There may be other dots that are your personal hotspots. So like if I slide over to Lyman, I have a bunch of personal hotspots out here for monitoring purposes for some volunteer work I do with forest preserves. Those are not publicly listed spots, but they show up in my list because I've used them before. So if I was close to one of those, it would recommend I pick one of those. So you can kind of pick your thing, but again, since we're close to it, this is the Russell R. Kirk Prairie. Use this location. And at some point I have to be very careful that I don't submit. I don't know if any of the DuPage County reviewers are in the room, but I don't want to drop 125 cackling geese on you. We're not going to have that much fun. Now, other things, protocols, stationary. All right, so it's by default, it's going to try to guess what the protocol is. So traveling and stationary and incidental are the three common ones you'll use. Traveling is if you're walking around, basically if you do anything but sit still, it'll always pick traveling. That's just generically moving around. The other thing is they have these icons to the right of them that give you a definition. So if you're ever concerned which one you should pick, click the eye, it'll explain it to you. Stationary, because my phone hasn't moved this entire evening, it thinks we're stationary. So it's recommending that. And then there's also incidental, which is good. Like sometimes you'll see, like you may have seen if for some reason you were driving down a highway and you saw a lifer, and it's like really, really excited and I want to put that in, but you weren't really birding. Incidental, you can start a checklist, put that bird in, close it real quick. It'll suggest incidental, but that basically tells them you weren't actually really looking for birds. You just wanted to put something in for your own reasons. So it kind of excludes those things from the science data sets to say like you didn't spend an hour out here and only see one bird. It's you weren't looking for anything. So then there's some other options for historical, banding, eBird, pelagic, and nocturnal flight call count. Generally speaking, unless you know what you're doing, you're not using. Unless you know why you're using those, you're not using them. So we're going to just call this an incidental checklist. There are normally it would display minutes and miles here if I was traveling, if I had moved around. Also, because I have selected incidental, we're going to change back to stationary real quick. They ask you this question of, are you submitting a complete checklist of the birds you were able to identify? That doesn't mean necessarily, you don't say no to that if you couldn't identify things, but you were trying. You say no to that if it was a casual list where you weren't actually looking for all the birds you could find. And instead, you just saw a bird on a wire and wanted to report it. That's where you say no. But otherwise, if you were trying, you gave it your best effort, that is yes. Put in yes. Now, again, as I said, if I said no, it's going to exclude this from the data set. It's actually, I believe it switches it to an incidental checklist. So if you have incidental, you're never allowed to say yes. It's automatically assigned to no. Yeah.
But you can still have an unincident checklist still being.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So at the bottom here, we've got our species list. This plus button will allow you to edit it after the fact. And then, so we can go do, it's just back to the same menu we were on before. We'll hit review. The other thing in here, especially if you bird with other folks who use eBird, this observers option, if I went birding by myself, that's all it's got, but I've got, 40 people in the room. So we're gonna bump this up to 40. The other thing about this is unless you change the observers off of one observer, it will not give you the share option in the app. So you have to bump it to at least 2 before it will give you the share. So like, just to show it again, if I say 1, it takes away the share option. If I go to 2, it gives me sharing. So at this point, if I say share, you can enter people's username, eBird username. So I'm going to say the important thing about this is you type in the field and it's one username at a time. You always have to hit the enter button on your phone keyboard to put the name in here. if it doesn't show up as a little box below, it's thinks everything you're putting in is one eBird name. So that's the big gotcha with this interface. So make sure, put in a username, hit enter, it'll show up as a little box. Put in another username, hit enter, it'll show up in the box, and you just keep adding them until you're done. So I'm sharing it with myself, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, the last step in here would be submit. I'm not going to click this because this checklist should get deleted. But that's the last thing you do. Yep. So we're going to go back. So you go back to your home page, you just hit the back button on your phone. That's the next thing on the itinerary here is checklists. So you've got two categories in here. You got your not submitted checklists and your submitted checklists. Not submitted checklists only exist on the device you created them on. They are not backed up anywhere. They have no other record in the system. They do not exist anywhere outside your phone. It's very important because once we delete this, it's gone. It will never come back. And the other thing goes, if you don't submit them and if you hoard them and you lose your phone for any reason, they're gone. You can't get them back. So I always advise, as long as you have a cell signal, submit them as soon as you're done with them, because at least it gets it on the cloud where you can edit it later if you need to. But obviously, in this case, I'm not submitting them. Or sometimes you're birding in a place that doesn't have a cell signal and you can't get them up. You can't get them uploaded, so you just have to hold on to them until you do get to somewhere that has a signal. Now to delete, that was one of the questions. You simply just hold press on the checklist in the list and hit delete, and it'll warn you that it's never been submitted, so deletion is permanent, and we're going to kill it anyway. So go through that. Now, the submitted category, it's going to take a sec to load everything up, because this actually will go up to the website and download information about every single checklist you've ever submitted, whether it was through the app or through the website. That was changed relatively recently. It is now, no matter where it was submitted from, it shows up in the app. Yeah, yes, it's last 6 months they added that feature. So just to demo a thing real quick, you can actually edit these. If you pull up an old checklist, this little edit pencil in the upper right will allow you to go into editing mode. So it'll download the checklist. Now the feature I want to demo here, because I couldn't do this on my other checklist because I didn't have a track. But if you click on the miles, this little map icon in the miles display, there's a track editor. Every once in a while, I'm guilty of this. I'll forget to turn off eBird before I pull out of the parking lot. And so, I'll go driving off to home and it'll tell me I eBirded for 10 miles. Like, no, I didn't. That didn't happen. So if you click on that icon, it'll take you to this editor. And you can actually, the slider at the bottom is the over time progression of your track. And you can basically edit it and slide it back to cut portions of the track out. Now, this one I'm not going to modify because it was a legit track from our Wooddale trip last weekend. But if you had that driving section, you could basically just drive the slider back in time until you hit the point where you're in the parking lot, hit continue, and it actually cut the mileage down to the accurate track. And it will also automatically edit your, so you can actually see it changing as I cut parts of the track out. It knows that I had taken 108 minutes to get to this point. So it knows that point was at 108 minutes. As I cut this back, it'll cut the checklist down to the correct time as well, time spent. So that's kind of the interesting track editing feature. If you ever accidentally leave it on after you leave your hotspot, it happens to the best of us. Cool. So that's your editing. We're gonna close without saving changes because I don't want to actually change anything. So that covers that. That's your track editing. And that's your unsubmitted versus submitted checklist. So that's basically, I know it took a while, but that's the whole checklisting feature in eBird. Good. I am not aware. So the question was, can you add any media app, whether it's a photo or a recording? I am not aware of a way you can do that. I believe you have to do that entirely through the website at the moment. It's certainly one of the things I wish they do, especially for the recording, since you can make them in Merlin. It'd be really nice if you could just automatically attach them to the list. But on the other hand, they do actually prefer you do some sound editing and stuff before you upload that stuff. So it might just be kind of a gate to people taking a weird photo, a crappy photo with their phone and then putting it on eBird checklist immediately. So I have no idea if they'll ever add the feature, but it's at the moment, no, you cannot add media on the phone, on the app. You have to go do it on the website later on. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So couple things. We've got 15 minutes left. Don't want to run too late, but we got a couple other things to run through. Now, Robert did the explore option for future planning. The website, I really like that tool for planning future trips because it's great when you're out there. Now, for those who came along, who came along for the McGee trip this spring, when you're on site and just trying to find birds, the app is actually probably the better place to go. I like the app's interface for if you're in the field a lot better than the website's interface. And that's just kind of a preference thing. They're designed slightly differently. So this Explore tab, just to show everybody, when you drop into the app by default, you're on the Submit tab. At the bottom, there's 5 options. The middle one is Explore. So we're going to hop into that. And it'll open this menu, and depending on exactly what your settings are, if you've ever used this before, it may look a little different. But it's basically going to center on your phone. And first off, before you start reading any of the data, basically what you want to do up here in the upper right, there's these settings sliders that allows you to set where you go. By default, it goes to your phone location. You can also hit this, basically you can hit this to get your GPS location. Then you got 2 options. You've got radius and you've got time period. How did I get here? So the settings menu in the upper right, there's these little 3 slider icon. Those are your settings. So this is basically your filter settings for the Explorer. You got a radius. So let's say I'm willing to go 5 miles to find a bird. Or I'm not, I'm willing to go 5 miles. You can go up to 30. You can go 1 mile. It depends what you're feeling, what you're looking for. You can kind of set according to that. Time period is basically how recently do you want to see sightings from? So do you want to see a sighting that was from the last 24 hours? Or do you want to see a sighting from the last 30 days? How tight do you want to focus? We're going to just go with 7. And then the other important thing is target list. We talked about this a little bit on the website, but you have different options for targeting. So you can say, I want to be looking at my DuPage, and I'm going to look at my year list. So basically what I'm doing at this point is I'm looking for birds within, we'll call it 10 miles of College of DuPage that I have not yet seen in DuPage County this year. And we're going to hit done. And it's going to think about it for a sec. And it's going to come up and say there are 161 species in the area. 26 of them meet that target criteria. So if I tap on this, 26 targets list, it'll show me all the targets that I have out there. So I have not seen a Eurasian collared dove. Somebody saw that recently. I've not seen a yellow-billed cuckoo. Somebody's seen that recently in DuPage County anyway. So let's say, you know what? I want to see a stilt sandpiper. Somebody saw that today. So you can actually tap on that entry and it'll resort the map. And there's only 2 hotspots that show now. One of them is, so it looks like someone saw one at Fermi 5 days ago. And then someone saw one at Salt Creek Marsh Forest Preserve today. So, if I wanted to go chase one, that's probably where I can go, Salt Creek Marsh. I can go back to my list, look for something else. I want to see a gray cheek thrush. There's a bunch of options here. You've got your list. Apparently one of them was at Morton Westside, but that was 6 days ago. So, you can just keep going through your lists and said, like, if you're out there in the field and you're just trying to find things to go look for, this is a really good way to just kind of do it on the fly. So as I said, like, if you're out with me on the McGee trip, when we did this was a big part of what I was doing when we were picking hotspots, is basically just pull up the phone, set it to, in that case, and Robert sort of alluded to the website version. If you're in a new territory, you can set your filter settings to like, we'll go back and we'll cover that in a sec. But you can set your filter settings to, like, we were in Ohio. I'd never been to Ohio before, so I just set it to my Ohio life list, and that was basically things I've never seen on this trip. So that was a good, like, okay, where can we find new birds? What new birds are out there? What do we want to chase? Right? Now there's the other thing. If you do want to do future planning, if you don't have a laptop or something available and the app is a little easier to use, you can still go look other places. If you tap on the location name, so for me it's DuPage. If you tap on that, it'll actually bring up a location selector. So I can say, like, we can go to Sierra Vista, Arizona. Sure, why not? And we're going to say done. And yeah. So we're going to do that. And we go back. and this is it'll take you to wherever you picked on the map. So this is actually the my target list for Cochise County, Arizona, basically, whatever it is. So random spot out of the hat, but basically you can do this wherever you want to if you want to look ahead to somewhere. The only thing about you can't really do with this is look up rare birds. There's not a really great way to flag that it's a rare, but you can do that. There's all sorts of options under here. Or actually, no, you can go to the rare bird alert. You can at least click on it from here. I've never actually scrolled down this far. So all the things that you can see on the website, there are links to it, but it'll take you to the website. It won't keep you in the app. The other thing you can do is you can search species. So willow flycatcher or something like that. If there's something specific you want to see, you can just search for it by name if there's a really long list. So that's the explore feature. Really, really good if you're just out in the field and you want to go look for stuff, or if you're in new territory. Last couple things in here, my eBird. This is pretty similar to the profile situation on the website. You see a lot of the same bars. So this is my DuPage County list for the year. It's been a good year so far, for me anyway. If you go in your upper right corner, there's this pin icon. This will allow you to switch to a different location, or I can say like my United States list. I've been traveling a lot, so I've got a lot of different things, and I've got a much bigger list United States than I do in DuPage, but you can bounce it around. Again, we can call it, you can search for specific things. This is Dare County in North Carolina, one of the spots I visit occasionally. So there's some information for that. So you can bounce around like that. Now, last thing, the other thing about it is, like, let's say we put it in world mode. A lot of the numbers in here are things you can click on. So like, for example, if I tap on my species count for world, that'll actually bring up my life list for the entire world. So you can scroll through it and see what your sightings are and all that stuff. And there's lots of cool stuff that if you click on it, like I can click on summer tanager and this will show me every single time I've seen a summer tanager anywhere in the world. So I've only seen them 3 times, as you go along. So if I, really go down the list to, I click something. So anyway, you can click around and you can see incidences and things like that. You can also check your year list the same way. So any of these numbers in here, and you can basically usually click on and they'll give you information about what's going on. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool if you like data and you like to see what you've done and where everything's been. It's cool. And sometimes you go out and like the other cool thing about the life list here is like if you go out somewhere, you go birding, you submit your checklist. It only takes about 5 seconds for it to update all your lists and everything. So you submit your checklist, you can put it in, then you can go into this setting. You can go into this field and refresh it by just dragging down like this, and it will refresh and you can see how many lifers you picked up on that trip if you weren't 100% certain if something was a lifer or not. So if you like to celebrate your lifers, it's a cool way to see exactly what you've got. And then last but not least, go ahead. Yes. That is the last topic. Yeah. Yes. So the question is about packs, and it said that is our last topic. So that is you're 30 seconds out of me. Great. Good though, because it's an obvious question. So the last tab on here is your settings. First off, before we get to packs, one of the very, very important ones, because this comes up on like every field trip of when people want their eBird list, what is my eBird username? If you go to the settings menu, it displays at the top of the page. So whatever displays here, mine is M. Crisler, but yours will display there. Whatever you said is your eBird name. If you want somebody to share a checklist with you, that's what you need to give them. Now, the other thing in here is packs. Packs are somewhat important. It's basically going to this. So eBird is, if you notice when we were doing the checklist, it's constantly looking at probabilities of what you can see, what you shouldn't see there, what's rare, what's not rare, all those things. So packs are its way, it will download a small amount of data. It's usually a few megabytes to have that information about where you are. Now, I'm not sure if there's regional packs, but it's something that's important to keep separate is Merlin packs for your bird identification. So like the birds you have downloaded in Merlin for pictures and sounds and everything are separate from eBird packs. They are not the same thing. So eBird tends to break down by state. So I'm wondering if you potentially had Merlin packs. Yeah, okay. So Merlin and eBird do not use the same packs, but the good news is eBird packs are very much smaller than Merlin packs if you're worried about space on your phone. Now, it will suggest packs as whenever you move around, and usually if you start a checklist, it'll prompt you to say, like if you went to California, you didn't have a California pack, when you first start a checklist, it'll say you don't have a pack for this location. Would you like to download it? Depending on the cell service, it may not take very long to download. And what that does for you, if you do not have a pack, you get a generic bird list for like the entire United States. And it has no idea what's rare, what's not rare, what should be there and what isn't there. So it makes certain things kind of challenging, especially if you're in new territory and you don't really understand what should be there or shouldn't be there. So I always highly recommend getting a pack. You can also pre-install them. If you go on all, if you go on all, you can actually search a pack. So like, I went to New Zealand last year, so I can go look for the New Zealand pack if I want to do this, if I was worried about cell reception where I'm going, or not having international phone coverage. I can go ahead of time and just install this New Zealand pack, and it's going to download it over the college's Wi-Fi, and away we go. It's now installed on my phone. So basically, you can operate without packs. However, a lot of the suggestions about rarity and frequency and all that and which birds should be there are just not going to be accurate. And it's a lot harder to use the app in packless mode than it is in with a pack properly installed. So you just hop over to this pack style menu, install. You can also uninstall. So there's this installed list. If you have space concerns, you can click and hold, and it'll give you the option to delete the pack. So I'm going to delete New Zealand again. Yeah, unfortunate. Oh no, I deleted Illinois. Well, good news is this is just running on a desktop computer, so it's never coming out again. So it did its job. It survived this demo without crashing too hard, and away we go. So that is the end of the demo. Any questions? Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. So pre-eBird checklist. So historical checklists. I don't remember the exact procedure for that, but that is done through the website. Yeah, there's two different versions of it depending on if you know the date or not. If you have the dates for your checklists, you can put them in. There's another option so I showed that life list feature. If you have a bunch of stuff that you don't know, like when I started birding, I technically started birding a little bit before I started using eBird. So I didn't have concrete dates written down. There is a procedure for how to put that stuff in the system. If you look up life list, I'd recommend for the time constraints we have, if you look up how to put in your life list on eBird, they have a lot of help articles explaining how to do it on the website. So they're good for that. Question from online of how to get to packs. This is the packs are in the settings menu. So if you go into the app by default, it's the settings is the bottom right option. And then it's the second option here. You tap on this and it takes you to the packs menu. Other questions? Yes. Correct. Privacy. Yes. So that is an important thing. So the question was on a checklist that you make, you can see your map. On any other checklist, you cannot see the map. That is intentional. eBird does not reveal tracks, your GPS track, to anybody except people who have been shared on the checklist. Any other user who is not part of the list, does not have a copy of the list, will not be able to see your GPS tracks. And that's a good thing for the most part for security and safety and other stuff, and also for the safety of the birds. Because sometimes you have a list where you report something that you don't want people to find or bother. So having a GPS track to exactly where it is kind of defeats the purpose. But yes, on any checklist, you will only be able to see GPS tracks for your own checklists or checklists that people have shared with you. And as I said, that is by design. There's no way around that, at least as far as I know. Yes. There is not. So the question was, is there a way to hide a sensitive bird? There are. I am aware there are species that are automatically tagged as sensitive. Like the example that came up on my end because I was trying to find these and discovered that I couldn't is Kirtland's warbler, and anywhere that isn't the one county in Michigan they live in. Kirtland's warbler reports will not show up in the state of Wisconsin, period, on the website. You cannot find them anywhere unless you have special permission from their data team to be able to see those observations. So if you report it, it will not show up to anybody but yourself on the checklist. So like if you had a checklist with that on it, if I opened it, I could not see that even though you could see that there's an extra bird on there. As far as intermediate things like owls is a frequent one. We had an owl nest at Lyman this spring. Basically what I did with that is I kind of left myself a note to go add all the information back because you can always go back and edit your checklist. I just sort of kept it off the checklist for a couple months and then added them back after the owl nest had cleared out so that people wouldn't go bother it. So sometimes you may want to do your own filtering, but for really, really extremely sensitive stuff, eBird has some stuff baked in that if the ornithologists deem it bad to expose this bird to anything, it will get hidden automatically. But that's stuff maybe a disclaimer from the front end of should have been at the front of the presentation. I'm not a representative of Cornell. I'm just a user. So I don't have all their policies and ins and outs and everything like that. Other questions? Cool. All right. I don't see anything coming from online. Again, thank you, Robert, for helping us out today with the website and instead of doing it from Southern Illinois. And hope everybody enjoyed. Hopefully this was helpful. Yes. So we're kind of out of time for the evening. The thing I'd say on Discord, we'll get to, we'll probably, yes, everybody's asking about Discord. We're out of time on that. I can mention it real quick. Let me, because I use Discord for a number of other things. But we're going to try not to share my random friends, invites on here. But Discord is a software. There was actually, I think, a link to it in the drummings this month. It's a fantastic software for social aspects and everything. There's a Discord called Birding Illinois. Basically, if you can get a link to it, I do not have invite codes. I do not have permission to give out invite codes for it. But if you can get an invite code to it, it's a place where people kind of just chat about birding. So there's channels. Basically, the default, this is the desktop app version, but the default of it is, you have your Illinois rare bird alerts. So this is really, really rare stuff for the state of Illinois. You have individual rare bird alerts by county for the common counties that people visit. And then you have a chat, and then you have sightings and chats for DuPage County. So, things in here, names you may or may not recognize. People, you can go chat with people about birds or just ask, where people were seeing things. So as far as specific details and social aspect, as I said, I do not personally have a Discord invite link available, but we can see about getting one and passing it out for the club. But if you can get onto this, it's a very, very useful tool for getting notified about things. And if you get more, as I said, I believe there was one in the drummings, or was it? Okay, but it wasn't an invite code. Yeah, so we were talking to the Birding Illinois Discord is run by a different group. We're not, as far as I know. Yeah. Okay, so so if you follow the link that's in the drummings, you should be able to get in. Yeah. But yeah, you basically look in here and you can kind of click like The Avocets that were here a couple weeks ago at Wooddale, you can click on this and there's a thread discussing this, and a lot of people, most recent message at the bottom, but as people are seeing it, like you can ask if it's still there, if everybody knows it's still there, and people will chat about it. It's just kind of a social media for birding, targeted social media for birding. So yeah, try out the link in the drummings, see if that gets you there. If I hear that that's not getting there, we can go chase down an actual proper invite link and see if we can get that too. Yeah. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right. Thank you, everybody, for sitting through a marathon session. And again, thank you, everybody online.